and welcome to my review of the Clashing of the Champions. The clashiest of the champions even, where I will be reviewing the show and saying how I felt about it. A lot of things happened, a lot of crazy things happened, but one thing is for sure, champions certainly did clash. Some more so than others, but clashing was done nonetheless, and by champions too. We kicked off with the kickoff show, presumably, as one does, that's a very fitting name, and they announced the pulling of two matches, because apparently Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax weren't cleared to compete, so the women's tag team title match was pulled, and Nikki Cross wasn't cleared to compete, so she was pulled from her match, and in return they announced that Bayley would be facing some sort of mystery opponent that night. So that sucked, rather unfortunate. I was kind of looking forward to the tag title match, that was going to be interesting. But yeah, nothing that can be done about that. And then R-Truth comes out, like it's 1850, I don't know what was going through his mind, but he's just R-Truth being R-Truth, so that really wasn't all surprising. But moving on to the actual first match of the show, we had Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura defending their SmackDown Tag Team Championships against Kalisto and Lince Dorado of the Lucha House Party. Now, there was an interesting dynamic going into this because, of course, beforehand, Lucha House Party were seemingly having a lot of tension built up between them, especially between Kalisto and the other two, and it seemed like they were going to break up, so there was an interesting dynamic in that sense of like what was going to happen. Would they be able to be cohesive in this match? Would they stick through it? Would they be able to pull off a victory? Or like what would happen? But as many people would expect, Cesaro and Nakamura retained successfully. The match itself was quite good. I mean, there were a couple of sloppy spots where the moves weren't as smooth or didn't flow as well as they should have or could have. But there were certainly some good spots, like when I believe it was Lince Dorado who did a suicide dive, but Cesaro caught him, and then Kalisto did another dive and helped him complete the DDT. Because Cesaro was like powerlifting him and was like about to slam him, but Kalisto dived out to help him complete the maneuver. That was a cool spot. But ultimately, Cesaro and Nakamura retained after like Cesaro was doing his Cesaro swing and Nakamura hit like a Kinshasa while he was being swung in midair. So, pretty deadly. I'm glad that happened. Cesaro and Nakamura shouldn't have lost, so they didn't, obviously. The match itself didn't really need to happen because they've already beaten them before for the titles on SmackDown, like I said in my predictions. So the match itself was like, it doesn't really need to be on a pay-per-view. They're kind of just doing it for filler because there's nothing else to be done. So yeah, the right result happened, and it was a solid match nonetheless. The next match was a triple threat ladder match, which opened the main show, and it was quite a match. A lot of things happened. Jeff Hardy was in there, so you knew a lot of things were going to happen. If you watched my predictions, you would know that I was 100% certain that Jeff Hardy was going to retain purely based on the fact that it was a ladder match and that's like his specialty. However, I was highly and pleasantly mistaken. Sami Zayn managed to win the Intercontinental Championship, and not win, my apologies. He retained his Intercontinental Championship. That's my bad. And deservingly so. Sami Zayn is phenomenal. I love Sami Zayn. He's great. I guess AJ Styles was in the match. Pun not intended. There were some amazing spots. Jeff Hardy swantoned Sami Zayn through a ladder. I believe he also did that off of a ladder himself. So off of a ladder onto a ladder. So Sami Zayn was dead for a little bit. AJ Styles was doing AJ Styles thing. He bridged the ladder and then between the announce desk and the ring, but it fell, so he had to smash Sami onto the table and then replace the ladder. But yeah, the match itself was really, really good. That was like a great match. Sami Zayn, to win the match, by the way, pulled out handcuffs. And at that point, I was like, oh, maybe this gives Jeff Hardy a little bit of advantage. Because history. But no, he handcuffed his ear to a ladder. And that was certainly interesting. Yeah. And then he also handcuffed AJ Styles. And then AJ handcuffed himself to Sami, and then he was lifting him to get to the top of the ladder, but Sami Zayn was smart because he brought the keys to the handcuffs, and he managed to unhandcuff himself, and both AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy were dead, and Sami Zayn managed to triumphantly grab his Intercontinental Championships. So yeah, that's basically what happened. I didn't describe that the best, but you get a general sense of what went down. Because like Jeff Hardy also smashed AJ with a ladder while Sami was on his shoulders in the fireman's carry position, but yeah. Moving on. The next match, Asuka versus Zelina Vega. Now this, everyone knew it wasn't going to be like a 5-star match. It was just going to be, like it was there. It was okay. Both women did what they had to do. Zelina did a good job. It was a solid match. It wasn't bad. But yeah, it wasn't ever going to be like a standout thing on the pay-per-view. People probably already forgot that it happened, to be honest. But Zelina certainly has a future. She's always good. She did very well with what she was given. And I look forward to seeing what's done with her. As for Asuka, I'm not sure what's next for her. I was confident that Shayna Baszler would be next to dethrone her, but then she got in the tag team thing with Nia Jax. So we don't know what's happening with that. And now neither of them are medically cleared to compete, which sucks. So I don't know who's next for Asuka. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Maybe Bianca Belair. She's been kind of getting pushed a little promo package recently. It could be her. Not sure. The next match was for the Raw Tag Team Champ. Oh, well, by the way, somewhere in between here, R-Truth stumbled into the referee's room. And then Drew Gulak was doing like lunges backstage or something. And then he saw this and decided to capitalize. And we had a new 24/7 champion that was crowned that night. And it was Drew Gulak. And that was great. And I was very happy for Drew. But yeah, the next match I believe was for the Raw Tag Team Championships, if I'm not mistaken. And that was between the Street Profits and Angel Garza and Andrade. I almost called him Angel Andrade. That made no sense. But that was a good match. And okay, I am almost certain that Garza and Andrade were supposed to win that match. The Street Profits retained, but I'll tell you exactly why they retained. It was bullshit, okay? Garza unfortunately injured himself. I saw the referee throw up the extra quick, and I'm like, oh, fuck, no, this is not good at all. Because it looked like Garza was about to make the tag, and that's what was going to set up, like, the finish. So Angel and Andrade would be the champions. But then he was injured, and the ref threw up the X. You could see something was going on because he was taking a while to make the tag. Andrade was clearly calling for it. And then you could see the referee was talking to Garza, and then he throws up the X real quick, and I was like, oh, this is not good at all. So then he makes the tag, and then real quick, Angelo Dawkins hits a spine buster on him. Andrade kicked out at like 2 3/4, but the ref counts at 3 anyways. Obviously, they had to change and rush the finish due to an unexpected injury, but I don't think Andrade got the memo, which is why the finish was so screwy. So the Street Profits retain, although I strongly believe that the actual finish that was supposed to happen is that the new tag team champions would be Garza and Andrade. So unfortunately, that didn't happen, and that sucks. I was really looking forward to that. And yeah, Angel and Andrade were on the same page, very cohesive. They looked very strong, like a different team entirely. Like it's completely different from when Vega was managing them. And then in an interview as well, they made sure to make clear that Vega was actually the issue between them and not themselves. So that was an interesting little dynamic, and that's what I was feeling was going to happen. It's just unfortunate that they had to be injured. Well, not they. It was only Garza, but that sucks, man. That's terrible. So what's next for Andrade? Now he's going to be in singles competition, presumably, for a while, depending on how long Garza's out for. Who knows? The next match, Bayley versus mystery opponent. She comes out with her best friend, the Steel Chair. And what happens next is questionable, to say the least. Who was her mystery opponent? It wasn't someone unexpected like Liv Morgan, who probably would have been there for the tag team match. Or the last person to successfully pin the SmackDown Women's Champion, Naomi. No, it was the Raw Women's Champion, Asuka. Because that makes sense. I mean, to be fair, they could have put on a decent match, but they didn't even do that. Bayley just hit her with the chair and got disqualified. So, I mean, that was a little bit of a waste. Who knows what was supposed to happen between Bayley and Nikki. Like I said in my predictions, I felt like maybe Alexa would have done something to like further her line being like possessed by the Fiend and then cost Nikki somehow, but it is what it is. Card subject to change, I guess, you know? And then some point, I forget when, but then there was another backstage segment. R-Truth straight up just concussed Drew Gulak with his fucking pot that he brought to the pre-show and won his 24/7 championship back. So unfortunately, Drew is no longer the 24/7 champion. But that set us up for Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton in the ambulance match. Now, that was a very good match, in my opinion. I don't know what the general consensus was about that. I didn't really check Twitter or any reviews yet to see what other people have thought about it. But I thought it was very interesting. It went down very well. They were back and forth for a good portion of it. At one point, both Drew and Randy were in the ambulance, but they were brawling, and the two doors weren't closed. So that was like the asterisk, so they didn't lose. No, neither one of them lost at that point. And we had some interesting dynamics, because at one point, the fucking Big Show comes out of nowhere wearing like a bandana around his face and chokeslams Randy Orton through the announce desk. And where did the Big Show come from? That was crazy. But that was cool. I thought that was cool. And then later on, Christian, when Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton went brawling backstage, Christian appeared out of nowhere and just started beating the shit out of Randy Orton. So all of Randy Orton's deeds have come back to bite him in the ass. And then at one point, Randy Orton was standing alone on top of the ambulance. And fucking Shawn Michaels appears out of nowhere, super kicks this man, and then just shoves him off the fucking ambulance. So that was a cool spot too. A lot of cool things happened, but ultimately it was Drew who got the upper hand. Drew McIntyre also claymored the door off the driver's side of the ambulance. So that couldn't have felt good at all. And then he got Randy Orton to be inside of the ambulance, and then he wasn't done there. That wasn't enough for him. He set him up with his head hanging out of the back of the ambulance, and he Claymored the fuck out. No, he didn't Claymore. He punt kicked the fuck out of him. He gave him a taste of his own goddamn medicine, closed the doors, and then the closing shots that we got were Ric Flair driving Randy Orton away in a doorless ambulance. So that was fun. I like that. That was a good finish. It did what it had to do. Drew McIntyre still standing tall. Although I feel like now it's going to be a very, very long time before Drew loses that title. Because if it wasn't going to be Randy Orton, and if it wasn't going to be in an ambulance match where you can't pin Drew, which is the only way I feel like they'd want to have Drew lose because they don't want him looking a little bit damaged or anything. There's like no one's built up nearly enough at all to take him down. But the question is, who is next for Drew McIntyre? And now a couple people have said Hell in a Cell, which makes sense. Randy Orton could come out and say he needed help to do so. That's what one of my friends was saying. That's very probable. It would make a lot of sense, in my opinion. I wouldn't be mad about that. They'd have a match at Hell in a Cell. It would be an amazing match, given what they've done in the ambulance match. It would be very good. But I think Drew would win again, because there'd be no reason for Randy to win after he's been losing all these times. So unfortunately, that might damage Randy a little bit, but it won't damage him too much, because he's still Randy Orton, and he's still one of the top heels, and he'll still go around punt kicking the heads off of people, not giving a shit. So that'll be good. It'll be interesting and fun. And I think that's probably the most probable outcome at this point. And then our main event, probably one of the best main events of the year so far. Maybe not the best, but definitely arguably one of the. If you have any complaints about this match, I honestly think you're insane, because that is what wrestling is. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso for the Intercontinental. What am I talking about? For the Universal Championship. What a match! Like, it wasn't like the best like wrestling, but the storytelling was phenomenal. It was great. Like, he kept like trash talking Jey throughout. He even gave the referee some shtick. He's like, "Yeah, I run this place. I'm gonna get you fired if you try to tell me what to do or touch me again." It was like Roman Reigns. That match was intense. There was intensity. You felt the intensity in that match, because that was like blood versus blood. You knew what was going down. You knew there was like some tension there. You knew something was there that needed to be done. And then Roman Reigns didn't just want to take the pinfall victory. He wanted Jey to tell him to his face that he is the tribal chief and that he is the head of the table. Now, of course, Jey was very resilient. He wasn't giving in. He's like, "Nah, not today, Uso." You know, he was doing all that stuff he always does. He wasn't giving in. And then Jimmy Uso comes down, because Roman Reigns just starts like fucking pounding him with elbows to the face and shit. And so his brother Jimmy comes running down with the towel. He's like, "I'm going to throw this in." And Jay's like, "Nah, no, don't do it. Obviously, because he's the face and he wants to come out on top. He still believes in himself. But eventually Roman Reigns just gives him a few more elbows. He keeps pounding down on him. He's like, "Call me the tribal chief." At one point, even Paul Heyman was like, "You are my tribal chief." And he's like, "Nah, I want him to say it." He wasn't taking any shit. He wanted him to say it. He wasn't pinning him or going for anything. And then eventually Jimmy was like, "Fuck it." He just threw in the towel. There's nothing that could be done. That match was like really, really good. The storytelling, 10 out of 10. But yeah, that's everything that went down. It was crazy. And then like Jimmy was a little bit upset too. He's like, this is really what you do. This is family, man. Come on. It was just great. Everything, all the elements, all the little details in there, everything was perfect. It was a great match. No doubt about it. So yeah, that's my review. That's what I thought about it. The biggest questions coming off the DKG Clash of Champions now is who are the next challengers and who will be the ones to successfully dethrone these guys, because seemingly both world champions on each respective brand are going to be dominant for the time in the foreseeable future. It doesn't look like they're going to lose anytime soon, especially not Roman Reigns. And yeah, the draft coming up too, that provides another interesting dynamic, because who goes where? You know, you could have Braun Strowman to Raw, you could have someone like Randy Orton could be a SmackDown guy, you never know what happens. So that's interesting. It's coming this October in 2 weeks' time, and provide some interesting shakeups. I'm interested to see, because I want Braun to go to Raw and challenge Drew for the WWE Championship, because I feel like that match could be like a banger of a match. If they have a proper feud, they could put on some good stuff right there. That's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, so yeah, leave some comments below on what you thought of the show and who you think will be the ones to dethrone Drew and Roman Reigns. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Right, it has occurred to me that I actually didn't give my final overall thoughts of the show, so I'm just going to throw this in real quick at the end of the video. Overall, I'd say it was a very solid, decent pay-per-view, nothing spectacular. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 personally. There were some sloppy spots, like I said, like in the opening match, there was some like miscommunications a little bit where things didn't flow as smoothly as they should have. The tag match, unfortunately, was a bit sloppy as a result of Garza's injury, which is to no fault of Dawkins and Andrade, of course. They weren't prepared for that. It wasn't their fault, but it was sloppy nonetheless. And, I mean, I don't have too many other complaints other than that. And the Bayley match kind of, Bayley being Bayley. But Bayley is one of the best heels in the business right now, okay? And I will die by that claim because this is the goddamn truth. And anyone who doesn't like Bayley is an idiot and is being worked because she's a heel, all right? That is that, okay? And that is final. But no, seriously, Bayley is phenomenal. She's an amazing heel. She is killing it in her reign. And I forgot to mention Sasha attacked her after the match. I don't know how I forgot to add that, which was interesting because I was under the assumption that Sasha would be out injured for a while until, make the surprise Rumble return, as one does, potentially even win that Rumble to set up Bayley versus Sasha at WrestleMania, or maybe Bayley even cost Sasha at the Rumble to further the storyline. So, yeah, Sasha beat Bayley down with the chair, giving herself a little bit of a revenge there. Retribution, if you will. And that was pretty cool. I mean, I didn't like it because Bayley was getting beat up. But, it is what it is. Overall, yeah, like I said, solid pay-per-view. The main event, phenomenal storytelling. It was beautiful. And yeah, so thank you for watching again.